Welcome back again, Year 3. It's good to see you on our YouTube channel here. It's the start of a new week and the start of a new month as well. And we're going to be thinking first of all today about literacy. Now, although it's a new week and a new month, we are very much continuing the unit that we began, I think last week, didn't we? So we're thinking all about how we can write persuasively. And so we've been learning some different techniques and skills we can use to persuade people. And although you've had the weekend off, I'm sure you can remember these 7 persuasive features we have been learning about. So just pause the video here and try to remind yourself what these 7 features were. Just say them out loud and come back to the video when you're ready. Okay, hopefully these were really easy to remember. You've got alliteration, where we're using several words in a row that start with the same letter or sound. Facts, which are provable, definitely true. Opinions, which are just one person's view. We've got rhetorical questions, where we're asking a question directly to our reader or our audience that doesn't really need an answer. Emotive language, where we're trying to make people feel a particular emotion. Statistics, where we're proving things with number facts. And the rule of 3, where we have a list of 3, so maybe 3 adjectives or 3 things in a list. And as well as learning these different features, we have been planning our leaflet. So I've talked about this quite a lot now. We are going to be writing a persuasive leaflet aimed at Victorians, so people that lived in Britain during the Victorian era, persuading them to come to the Great Exhibition. So you've got to imagine that we are there in 1851, and it's our job as advertisers to persuade Victorians, people that lived at the time, to attend the Great Exhibition. The reason I just want to sort of make that point really clear, that we're writing as though we're in 1851, is that we're not persuading people now to attend. So we're not going to be talking about the internet or anything like that. We're not going to be giving a website. And similarly, we're not going to be talking about things that happened in the future. So we're not, for example, going to say when the Great Exhibition burned down. Because although we found out about that, if we were writing this as a sort of persuasive leaflet in 1851, persuading people to come, of course, that hasn't actually happened yet. So we need to imagine that we are there in 1851, persuading people to come and buy tickets to see the Great Exhibition. So on Friday, I think you made your own plan for this. So this is where we mapped out what we were going to say and where, when and where on the leaflet we were going to say it. Now, yours might well look very different to mine, but here is the one that we made in class actually on Friday, the children that were in school. We made this one together. And this was where we'd sort of put together various points that we had found out. So we've put together some things that we found out about as part of our history learning. We put in some sentences that we had come up with as part of our literacy work. And we just sort of dotted in a few little facts and things. We also did a little bit of extra research and put some of those things in. And we've got now, I think, a really good plan here, which is going to help us to do all of our writing. Now, what I want you to do now is fish out your plan, make sure you've got that to hand. And if you've got any boxes that maybe are looking a little bit empty, feel free to borrow some of the sentences or the facts or the information that you can see on our version here and copy those down for yourself. So just a couple of things you might be interested in. For example, we've got the address there in the map and contact section, Hyde Park, London, the postcode. We've got a few little facts there about how long the building is, things like that that might be handy. If you've got any sections which you think, oh, I don't really know what I'd write in that section, you can copy down a few of the things from our plan here. You're very welcome to. Okay, so today then, this is very much our hot task for persuasive writing. So we've done all of our learning on it. We've learned about these features. We've watched some adverts. We've written some sentences of our own. And now is the time where we're going to use and apply all of that new learning, and we're going to put it into action and write our leaflet. Now, I should say that at this stage, this is going to be just written into, in our case, like our literacy books. In your case, probably just some paper, line paper if you've got it. We're not going to be making the leaflet just yet. So what we're going to be doing over the next few days is actually getting down the text bit of it, so the actual writing, and think of it a bit like a draft, really. We're going to draft all of our work first of all, which means to sort of do our first try at it. And then after we've written it all, after we've edited it, after we've proofread it, after we've got a peer to have a look at it as well, once we're really, really super happy with it, I think probably next week or maybe Friday of this week, we will actually start to present it and lay it out really nicely as a leaflet and print things off and make it look really good. And that will eventually go into our topic books if you bring it back in. But yeah, today we're just doing the actual writing element. So don't feel like you need to be folding up a leaflet today. Today is just getting our ideas down on paper in full sentences so that we've got our text written. Okay. So we're going to be drafting out each panel of the leaflet, and we're going to go one at a time. We're going to sort of go through it bit by bit. So we're going to do some of it today, some of it tomorrow, and I think probably some of it on Wednesday as well, to sort of finish it all off on Wednesday. So we're going to start with the introduction. So it's that first box on our plan, the introduction bit. And this really is where we need to imagine that we need to explain the Great Exhibition to someone in the Victorian era who has never heard of it. They didn't have the internet. We've got to imagine that they have never heard of this, and it's our job to tell them what it is. That's really important. So just try to picture that in. If it was the case that you were having to explain this to someone who'd never heard of it before, what would you tell them about it? What is it? What's the point of it? What makes it worth going to see? So again, just pause the video and just say out loud now. Imagine that mum or dad or whoever sat with you, or teddy bear if you're on your own, what would you say to them if you had to completely explain from scratch what the Great Exhibition is? How can you tell them what this thing is and why it's worth getting excited about? Okay, hopefully you've had a chat about that. I want you to have a go now then. Pick up your pen and be ready. I'd like you to have a go at writing one amazing first sentence. Now, often with adverts, advertisers work really hard to kind of draw you in as the audience straight away. Because if you imagine, if you're watching an advert on TV now, for example, if it doesn't really sort of capture your attention in the first few seconds, you're probably dozing off. You might even be changing the channel or pressing skip on YouTube. So the first few seconds of an advert have got to be really interesting and engaging and exciting. And it's the case here that our first sentence needs to be really interesting, engaging, and exciting, so that people don't just instantly, get bored, switch off, and aren't excited. So we'll sort of go through this together in a minute, and we'll do some sort of, I'll do some modeled writing on the screen here for you. But first of all, just try to get for me one really great opening sentence. And my advice to you here, I think a great technique you can use would be a rhetorical question. I think that would be a really good way to engage your reader, to sort of directly address them and get their attention. So have a go at that now. Maybe use rhetorical question. If you've got a great sentence of your own, you can write whatever you want. But come back to me in a moment and unpause the video when you've got a really great opening sentence. Okay then, so hopefully you're back, and I'm hoping you've got a really brilliant first sentence that you can feel really proud of. Let's have a go at this together then. So I mentioned there a rhetorical question I think would be a really great opening, because that directly addresses your reader, and hopefully that's going to make them engage with it. It's going to make them sort of think about what their answer is. So I'm going to start with a rhetorical question. I'm going to say, are you bored of the same dull, grey, and uninspiring life? So we know that the Victorian era was a bit of a sad time, wasn't it? A bit of a tough time to live through. So I'm going to try to sort of play on that, and I'm going to say, are you bored of that sort of boring, dull life that you have? You might also notice that I've got a list of 3, haven't I? Dull, grey, and uninspiring. Okay, so now hopefully they're thinking, oh, actually, yeah, I am a bit bored of my Victorian life. So now I've got to persuade them, and I've got to hit them with this explanation of what the Great Exhibition actually is. The Great Exhibition is a new museum which will excite and amaze you. So that's my one sentence, which really just sums up exactly what it is. In fact, I could even sort of distill it just down to that, couldn't I? The Great Exhibition is a new museum. Now I'm looking at that, I think actually we could probably improve on that, couldn't we? Something new museum. I want something better than just a new museum. So can we think of a good adjective to go in there? The Great Exhibition is a something new museum which will excite and amaze you. Can you think of any good adjectives for me? I'm going to put Wondrous, which is a bit like wonderful. Wondrous new museum, which will excite and amaze you. Okay, so I've told them what it is. Now I want to sort of hit them maybe with some facts which might make it sound quite exciting. And I think a really good one actually is whose idea this was. And of course it was whose idea? That's right, Prince Albert, the Queen's husband. So let's add that in then. So we're going to say Queen Victoria's husband, Prince Albert, has put together a collection of more than 100,000 objects. That's another good fact that I've got there. Collected from around the British Empire. Okay, so I've tried to sort of fit quite a lot in there. I've tried to include that fact of whose idea this actually was, Queen Victoria's husband, which I think would be quite persuasive to Victorians if they found out that, you know, this wasn't just any old guy that had come up with this, it was Queen Victoria's husband. That would be quite a persuasive person to be behind this campaign. We've also got there the fact that there are more than 100,000 objects, which I think is a really special part of this, that there is so much to come and see. You know, you're not going to be bored at this museum. There's 100,000 different things to see. Could we, again, I think we could probably improve this with a good adjective here. This is always a good way to improve our sentences. We can always be looking back and thinking, right, well, could I actually describe that a bit more? So it has put together and again, I'm probably just really here thinking of another word that means the same as good or great. Prince Albert has put together an astounding collection of more than 100,000 objects collected from around the British Empire. Okay. I'm going to say many incredible inventions will be on display very first time. Now I've got a little bit of, what's this an example of here? Got two I words in a row. That's alliteration, isn't it? So I've got a bit of an example of alliteration there. Just to make that really kind of roll off the tongue, I might try and get an extra I word in there. So I've noticed that I've got two words that begin with I, one after the other. Can we extend that a little bit? Many incredible inventions. I'm going to say here, innovative. Innovative, incredible inventions will be on display for the first ever time, for the very first time. Okay, so we've got a really good paragraph there, I think, haven't we? And we could pick out some of these different features that I know that I've used. So I've just pointed out that alliteration at the end. I've got innovative, incredible inventions. We definitely had some good facts. We had the fact it was Prince Albert who put this together. We had 100,000 objects. What's 100,000 also an example of? It's a statistic, isn't it? Because it's a number fact. I'll sort of do that in two colours there. We had a rhetorical question to start this off. Need a different colour. We had, are you bored of the same dull, grey and uninspiring life? That's a good rhetorical question. We had a rule of three, didn't we? Dull, grey and uninspiring. You can see there some of these features will overlap a little bit, like we've had the fact and a statistic, they're kind of the same thing. Are you bored of the same dull, grey and uninspiring life? I've combined there a rhetorical question and also a rule of three. So often it will overlap a little bit and you will get a bit of both. Now, it's not to say that you need to use every one of these 7 features that we've looked at, but it is a good idea to try to drop some in as you go. And like I've done, I've just sort of, at the end of my paragraph there, I've just taken a moment just to sort of double check which ones have I used. Am I really making an effort to put in these persuasive techniques? If you get to the end of your paragraph and you realize, oh, I didn't use any, maybe that's a good idea to go back and put some in. Okay, so have a go at your own one now. I'd like a really good first sentence. I think, did I say here? I don't know if I made this clear. Yeah, we're going to sort of ignore the building itself for now, because that's going to be our next little section that we're going to do in a minute. But for now, can you write me a really great introductory section which explains what the Great Exhibition is? Okay, hopefully you're back then. We've done that bit. What I'd like you to do now then, so that's the sort of first half of our session. So now we're going to carry on and we're going to write now about the building itself. Now, when we were writing down our facts from our history lesson, hopefully you got down lots of great facts about the building. If you didn't, you can go back to I'll go back for you. Here's my planning sheet here. You might just want to jot down a few different bits and pieces that we wrote down about it. All of these things would be great facts to mention, great things to mention. We're going to have a go at writing about the building itself. Now we want to think what's actually special about this building, because there's an awful lot that we can mention. It was simply the case that nothing like this had been seen in Victorian Britain before. This was an extraordinary building, a hugely impressive building, and the Victorians themselves would have been stunned to see this thing and to hear about it. So we want to sort of capture that incredible nature of it. So we're going to write our persuasive section now on the building itself. So why would people want to come and see this building? So underneath your introduction, we're going to start writing about the building itself. And if you know that there were some features that maybe you didn't use last time out, it might be a good idea to try to get some in now. I'm going to pause the video here. I will have one of my own for you in just a minute, but see what you can do with your own version now. And then we'll come back and we'll see my version in just a second. Okay, so here's one I came up with. You're welcome to sort of borrow elements of this. If there's suddenly a fact in here you really like, or one that you sort of, a sentence you really like, or maybe you can adapt and tweak some of the features we've seen. So I've said, the most extraordinary exhibit of all is the structure itself. More than 2,000 workers have been busy building this incredible venue. The Crystal Palace is made almost entirely of glass, meaning it will dazzle and shine in the London sun. The Grey exhibition is 563 metres long and 34 metres tall, meaning you will never have seen anything of this scale ever before. This fascinating work of architecture is in fact taller than 5 elephants, 2 trees, or a dozen carriages, each of which you can see on display inside. So there's loads there about the building itself. Now, just reading it back to myself, I've noticed one thing I've done is I've actually put this sort of meaning bit here, so meaning here and meaning here. So let's actually change one of those and just sort of make that sound a little bit nicer, because we don't want to repeat ourselves too much. So I've got the Crystal Palace is made almost entirely of glass. I can just say so, can't I? So it will dazzle and shine in the London sun. Okay, so like I've done there, it's always a really good idea to sort of read your work back to yourself and make sure you are happy with it. Right then. So by the end of today's session then, I want you to have 2 really great paragraphs. One about the introduction, so saying what this building is, and a second one about the building itself. And if we go back to our plan, we'll just sort of look at where that leaves us. I think we'll have done this sort of opening section by the end of today, when we will have done the introduction, we'll have done the building itself, and then tomorrow we can move on to do a couple more. I think tomorrow we will do the attractions section and the facilities section, and then on Wednesday we'll just sort of finish it off and do our proofreading on Wednesday. So best of luck with this. I'm really looking forward to seeing these at the end of the week. I think this is going to be a super piece of writing. You've got the opportunity to put in all of these great features we've learned about. Hopefully you're going to put in things like adjectives and front adverbials as well, which we've learned loads about over the last term. Have fun with it as well, though. I think this should be a really good creative bit of writing we can all really enjoy. Okay, everyone, have a good rest of your morning. I'll see you back for your maths lesson after this. Bye.